Welcome to the podcast. I'm David Jolly, and today we're diving into one of the most fascinating untold stories of American history. And I do mean untold because most Americans have no idea just how much they owe to France. Now, I have to say before we jump into this podcast, there are some French names, notably one that I'm probably going to butcher. I'm sorry, I'm going to try to do it right. I've practiced, but, it might not go so well. And this is even though I took French during high school, but that was admittedly over 40 years ago. So we'll see. I promise I'll do my best. All right, let's go back to 1777. Things are looking pretty grim for the Continental Army. Washington's troops are freezing at Valley Forge. They're literally leaving bloody footprints in the snow. And the British, well, they seem to have all the advantages. They have money, supplies, a professional navy, you name it, the Brits had it. And the Americans, they did not. But here's where the story gets interesting, because across the Atlantic, there's a young French king who's about to make a decision that will change the course of world history. And a bit of a spoiler alert here, it's also going to bankrupt his country and eventually cost him his head. But yeah, we'll get into that a bit later. So let's rewind a bit. Why would France, a monarchy, want to help a bunch of colonial rebels overthrow their legitimate king? Well, it wasn't about democracy or freedom. France was still an absolute monarchy after all. No, this was about something much more basic. Revenge. See, France had just gotten absolutely humiliated in the 7 Years' War, what we Americans call the French and Indian War. They lost most of their North American empire to Britain, including Canada and Louisiana. The French were still smarting from that defeat, but when these American colonists started causing trouble for their old enemy, well, the French, they saw opportunity. And here's the thing, the French weren't going to jump in right away. They're smart. They wanted to see if these American rebels actually had a shot. And then came the news that changed everything. The Battle of Saratoga in October 1777. Benedict Arnold. Yes, that Benedict Arnold. Do we know any other? Well, before he became America's most famous traitor, he leads a brilliant tactical victory. The Americans, they surround British General Burgoyne's entire army and force them to surrender. 5,000 British troops just gone, captured. And when news of Saratoga reaches Paris, the French court, they go wild. This isn't just some ratbag militia anymore. No, these Americans just prove that they can beat professional British forces in open battle. King Louis XVI and his ministers realize all of a sudden that this, might actually work. And so on February 6th, 1778, France signs not one, but two treaties with the Americans. The first is a treaty of friendship and commerce. Basically, we'll be trading partners. But the second? That's the Treaty of Alliance, and it's a game changer. France formally recognizes American independence and promises military support. Now, let me tell you about some of the incredible French heroes who made American independence possible, and I guarantee you've never heard of most of them. First up, the Marquis de Lafayette. Okay, you might know this one, perhaps. There's probably a street named after him in your town even, but here's what's amazing about Lafayette. He was just 19 years old when he volunteered to fight for American independence. 19. He was so young that when he first tried to sail to America, his family had the ship stopped by French authorities. But Lafayette was determined. He bought his own ship, sailed to America anyway. And when he got shot in the leg at the Battle of Brandywine, well, George Washington basically adopted him as a surrogate son. Lafayette served without pay, used his own fortune to buy supplies for troops, and became one of Washington's most trusted commanders. But here's the French hero you've probably never heard of, Jean-Baptiste Donatien de Vimeur, the Comte de Rochambeau. Try saying that 5 times. Actually, try saying that 1 time. Rochambeau commanded the French Expeditionary Force, 5,500 professional French soldiers who landed in Newport, Rhode Island in 1780. They weren't volunteers or adventurers like Lafayette. This was the official French army, and they were good. Rochambeau's forces were disciplined, well-equipped, and experienced. More importantly, Rochambeau was a brilliant general who managed to work seamlessly with Washington, despite the obvious challenges. Different languages, different military traditions, different cultures. And then there's the French Navy. Oh boy, yep, the French Navy. See, Britain's great advantage throughout the war was their control of the seas. They could move troops wherever they wanted, supply their forces, and keep the Americans bottled up along the coast. But when France entered the war, suddenly Britain had to worry about French fleets in the Caribbean, in the Indian Ocean, off the coast of Europe, everywhere. The British Navy was stretched thin for the first time in decades. And this brings us to the moment that really won the war. The siege of Yorktown in 1781. Here's how it went down. British General Cornwallis has dug in at Yorktown, Virginia, thinking that he can be resupplied by the British Navy. Washington and Rochambeau see an opportunity to start marching south with their combined forces, about 17,000 men. But here's the key. French Admiral de Grasse arrives with 28 ships and 3,000 more French troops. When the British fleet shows up to rescue Cornwallis, de Grasse's fleet fights them off in what's called the Battle of the Chesapeake. The British ships limp away, leaving Cornwallis trapped. So, Cornwallis is surrounded on land by American and French troops and blocked from escape by sea by the French Navy. He's got nowhere to go. On October 19, 1781, he surrenders his entire army, about 8,000 men. But French influence on America did not end with military victory. Oh no, we're just getting started. You see, many of the ideas that shaped the American Constitution came straight from French Enlightenment thinkers. Take Montesquieu, his concept of separation of powers with executive, legislative, and judicial branches checking and balancing each other. That's the backbone of our entire system of government. Voltaire's ideas about religious tolerance and freedom of speech, well, they're all over our Bill of Rights. Jean-Jacques Rousseau's theories about popular sovereignty, the idea that government gets its power from the people. That's literally the first line of our Constitution. We, the people. The Founding Fathers weren't just influenced by these French thinkers. They were in constant correspondence with them. Thomas Jefferson, when he was ambassador to France, well, he hung out with these guys regularly. He'd attend salons in Paris where they'd debate political philosophy late into the night. And here's where our story takes a dramatic turn, because France's generosity towards America, well, it came with a price. And that price was bankruptcy. The French spent an absolutely enormous amount of money supporting American independence. They built ships, bought weapons, paid soldiers, provided loans, and they did it all while fighting their own expensive war against Britain in Europe, the Caribbean, and India. By 1783, when the war ended, France was essentially broke. The government was spending twice as much as it took in through taxes. King Louis XVI tried desperately to reform the tax system, but the nobles and clergy, the people who actually had money, refused to pay their fair share. Sound familiar? Economic inequality, tax avoidance by the wealthy, a government drowning in debt from military spending. History does tend to repeat, doesn't it? So in 1789, just 6 years after helping America achieve independence, France erupted in its own revolution. And here's the tragic irony. Many of the French officers who had fought for American liberty, who had seen democracy in action, came home and tried to create something similar in France. Lafayette actually drafted the French Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, using the American Declaration of Independence and Bill of Rights as models. He literally sent the key to the Bastille to George Washington as a symbol of liberty. But the French Revolution turned violent in ways that the American Revolution never did. King Louis XVI, the same man who had supported American independence, was guillotined in 1793. Many of the French nobles who had fought alongside Washington met the same fate. It's one of history's great ironies. France bankrupted itself, helping America become free and democratic. And that bankruptcy led to a revolution that consumed many of the very people who had made American independence possible. So here's what I think is important to remember. American independence wasn't just an American achievement. Without French money, French weapons, French soldiers, French ships, and French ideas, there probably would not be a United States of America. The next time you see a street named Lafayette, or visit Yorktown, or read the Constitution, remember that you're seeing the legacy of French sacrifice. They believed in American liberty so strongly that they were willing to risk everything for it. And in many cases, they lost everything. France gave America the gift of independence, and America gave France the inspiration for its own revolution. It's a story of friendship, sacrifice, and the dangerous power of revolutionary ideas. And that's why the oldest alliance in American history, the Franco-American Alliance, signed in 1778, is still meaningful today. Because sometimes the most powerful thing one nation can do for another is believe in its dreams of freedom. Merci beaucoup de votre écoute. J'espère ne pas avoir détruit trop de noms français. N'oubliez pas de vous abonner.